Oh, Steve Arts 89. Well, I finally watched Road Games. Now, I stumbled across this film because I pay for a specific amount of data, and I usually only use it for the internet, so I usually end up with data left over, and usually towards the end of the month, I'm looking around at the streaming services for the local TV stations and hoping to find something to watch so I can use it all because I don't like the idea of paying for it, paying off this money and then not using it all. So I was looking and I stumbled across Road Games. Now, Road Games was a film that it was filmed in Australia, but it starred Jamie Lee Curtis, and there was a bit of controversy because an Australian actress was basically she lost the role to Jamie Lee Curtis because she was an American actress, and I think there was a funding issue as well as just the idea that the film would do better with an American actress. So the crew wasn't particularly friendly to her when she came on, apparently, because she'd basically stolen the job from a local actress. But she spent a fair amount of time here, and she seemed to get some appreciation of Australia, and she talked fairly fondly about it. I think it was directed by Peter. No, not Peter. Oh, he did The Exorcist. He directed The Exorcist. I'm totally blanking on his name, but was it William Friedrich? No, I can't remember. But it's basically the story of a guy, a truck driver, who is traveling. He's not really a truck driver, actually. He will tell you he's not a truck driver. He just drives trucks. That's just what he's doing at the moment. That's not what he is. And he witnesses a murder, sort of. He sees a guy pick up a hitchhiker that he doesn't pick up, and then that girl disappears, and he keeps seeing the guy that picked her up, who seems to be travelling in the same direction, travelling across Australia. I think to Melbourne. I think they're going from Sydney to Melbourne, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they end up in Melbourne. And or did they start off in Melbourne and go to Sydney? I can't remember. But I watched it a couple of days ago, forgive me. But so he starts to sort of pay attention to what's happening. He sees this guy digging a hole out in the middle of nowhere, and it just becomes very weird. And eventually he picks up this girl he's seen like 3 times, and it's Jamie Lee Curtis. She's the daughter of a diplomat, and she's basically run off because she can't deal with the father and the politics and all this stuff. And they have an interesting chat, interesting talk, and then eventually he draws her into his suspicions, and eventually she actually spies and looks in to this guy's van because he's driving a little panel van, and then it's all on because she disappears and he doesn't know, has she been kidnapped, has she hooked up with him? It looks like she's hooked up with him, but she disappears and he doesn't know what's happened, and eventually follows him, basically runs him into an alley, and his truck ends up crushing the van, and they're trying to arrest this guy because the whole time he's been doing things and getting caught doing things and looking like he's actually suspicious, and then of course they end up blaming, it just ends up turning on him at the end. But eventually, well, pretty soon they realise the guy that he was attacking is actually, the I was going to say killer, but yeah, I guess the killer, because there's it's on the news that several girls have been killed, and we see that Jamie Lee Curtis's character was actually in the van, tied up in the back of the van, so she was in there the whole time, that they didn't know where she was, and of course the good guy wins, saves the day. They end up together. The last sort of scene of the film is just them sort of walking off together because he's lost his job. He's trashed the truck he was renting or whatever to work, and they're just walking along, I think eating ice cream, saying, well, what are we going to do now? But overall, it was a good film. It was interesting. It was tense. It was an interesting look at, I've never driven a truck, but oh God, he's no relation to me, is he? My niece's baby daddy drove a garbage truck, and a few times my niece and I, when I was in Melbourne, went out for the day driving with him, and we were up in this big, because it's like a truck, like, so it's high up, so you're sort of looking down on everyone like you do with actual trucks and everything. So that weird perspective that you have when you get to look in on other people's cars and everything, I sort of was familiar with. And It was interesting. They managed to create an intriguing little story. And I've travelled a couple of times by bus, which is also sort of similar, where you get to look sort of down into people's cars and that. To Sydney a couple of times from Melbourne, and just the stopping in between places and the little roadhouses and things. And I was looking at one place, I'm like, have I been to that one? Is that one of the ones on the way that's sort of famous? It was sort of hard to tell because it was like made in like 86. And I was travelling like 20 years later, 20 years ago. So yeah, but it was good. It was tense. It was interesting. Wasn't really like a slasher or a horror. You didn't really see anything really horrific. It was just a lot of suspicion and tension, and intrigue, and it was quite well done. And Jamie Lee's character was almost likable. I mean, it's hard to like anything she does now because I know in person she's a bitch. Uh, but I'm glad I finally found this film, saw this film, heard about it for years, and I finally watched it and I liked it. So I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of Road Games if you've seen it.